Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Audio check done. Roll 'em. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your support. Click the subscribe button. Helps promote this video, this channel. And I wanted to talk about, if you had the time to watch the hundreds of videos on this channel, it would take you months. It's a lot of long form. But more to the point, I'm going to talk about mandala. Okay. I've talked about it before. I've talked about it from the perspective of, which is maybe the most critical element, is an actual Nichiren inscribed mandala. But today I wanted to take a little bit more, a broader look. First of all, the business of looking up information on this channel, just because that's what this channel is for. Information for you, for your practice, yeah? And, I know I put out a lot of videos almost every day. And so just to keep up, you can download the audio podcasts or watch these video podcasts. But I mean, if you're anything like anyone I've ever met, certainly like me, questions pop up in your mind through the course of your day, through the course of practice, and they don't follow this specific order of whatever I'm dealing with on that particular day. So you need to know how to look up information on not only threefoldlotus.com, which is a bunch of printed stuff, but on this channel. And as all of you know, there's a search at the top of the YouTube page where you can search criteria, but that searches all of YouTube, and that goes through algorithms and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to talk about that search. I want to talk about the search on the home page. Whatever video you're watching from this channel, there'll be, where you go to like and subscribe and all of that. There's an icon, a little circle avatar with the Threefold Lotus Kun thing. If you click on that and go to the home page of this channel, the landing page, if you will, it has a large image at the top and the name of the channel and all that. But beneath that image, there's a menu, right? It says videos, playlists, about. And then after, I think about is the last in the series of links. But there's a little magnifying glass. That's a search. But that search is for stuff within the channel. This is how YouTube does it across all channels, not unique to ours. Okay? But in that search, you can put a keyword like mandala. And when you click or hit enter, that keyword will look at all the video titles and descriptions, and wherever that mandala word comes up, it'll result in a list of videos on this channel that touch on that subject. It's really, really handy, and I encourage you to use it. And so you'll find there's several videos where I focused in on this mandala question. I'm going to do it again today, but I'm going to take maybe a little different approach. It's just every now and again, I want to catch everybody up, right, who maybe not has figured out how to use that search or doesn't have the time to. But this is a critical piece of information in our practices. I still get questions. Is this mandala good enough? Is this one that I got from so-and-so? Is this one from... And so I don't want to... There's so much rhetoric and misinformation out there. And there are whole sects like Nichiren Shoshu, and I hate to, I don't want to single them out, but it's one that I'm familiar with. And you need to understand that the mandalas that they distribute, they have an idea in their head of how they want to promote. Well, you know, they call themselves, and this is worldwide, and I'm going to show you some books that use this Nichiren Buddhism moniker. And that right from the get-go, that's wrong. But, you know, you have to be able to distinguish between common language, which is kind of whatever's popular, and then academic language or scholarly language, where those mistakes can't be tolerated. And here's what I mean. We practice Shakyamuni's Buddhism. That is the only Buddhism. Let me say that again. You and I practice Lotus Sutra Buddhism. It is Shakyamuni's Buddhism. Our modern mentor, our modern exemplar, our modern scholar, our modern bodhisattva is Nichiren. But Nichiren doesn't teach his own Buddhism. He teaches Shakyamuni's Buddhism. All of it culminating with the Lotus Sutra, the ultimate teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. That's what we practice. Organizations like Nichiren Shoshu and whatever it spawned into the world, they have the idea that their current abbot, whatever, you know, they have over 60 different over their history abbots of the Fuji school, right? Not Minobu, Fuji. And they see themselves as the current Nichiren. That's the quickest way I can put it. And so whoever's controlling that sect at that time in history, he or she, but we've never had a female abbot, he will copy Nichiren's mandala in his own script and sign his name to it with the date and whatever else honoraries he wants to put on that mandala. And so now, without knowing it, the members, the followers of that sect, are chanting to, exalting of, locating their Gohanzon through the portal of Nikken or whatever the current abbot is. And they're perfectly fine with that, because there's like this ritual of bequeathing the teachings, and that they're the new authority. In a lineage, they're really hung up on that ritual. And you know, SGI did that, and then SGI got into whole kinds of things with Nichiren Shoshu, and then they decided, well, this priest was better than that priest, and we're going to use that mandala. And all they did was they obviated the problem. I've even heard some SGI members talk to me about, now SGI, or my group at least, is promoting, we don't even need that silly mandala. What are you practicing? So, there are different situations, different sects. But But I think what's really, really essential here and needed is just some clear-headed understanding of what we're doing, what we're trying to do, what is the mandala for, and what about this mandala? Is there only one? There seem to be many. Which one's right? Right? These questions plague especially early practitioners. And when these questions come up, they're really bothersome, and that's why I'm addressing it, because they can create so much doubt. It did for me. And with all my research and skepticism, I needed to know. So I've done several things over the years regarding the mandala. Like I said, I've talked about it before. I put this book up on lulu.com, and it's a PDF you can get on threefoldlotus.com. There's a link on the course study materials page that says Gohonzon Map, and you'll get a PDF of this if you want to download it. You can buy the book too on Lulu. That helps support the channel. So cool. Selfless, shameless plug, I guess they call that. But anyway, this is something that most of you are probably familiar with, but have a hard time getting a hold of, is the Shute Gohonzon. There's a picture of our mandala that we use, and I'm getting to why that's the one we use. And then there's this, you've probably seen this before, this kind of a key, a map. And it has all the different characters, and they're all named in the book, what they are. And then there's background information about all of these different sections that are on the Gohonzon. It's really handy if you're curious about what this mandala is about, how it constructs the ultimate teachings of the Lotus Sutra and the history of Buddhism, and what it represents in our enlightenment, how it's used. Handy book. But the problem with that, even if you get that deep into it, is that it still makes it look like there's only one mandala. But read the title of this book. Try to put it where you can, I'm getting all kinds of reflections on it. You see that? The Nichiren Extant Mandala Collection. There are today, historical documents. We're talking about medieval Japan. When Nichiren created these mandala, it was an evolution throughout his lifetime of practice and teaching. And as he explored the depths of Tendai's teachings and Miao and Dengyo and Shakyamuni, it became obvious what was happening in the Lotus Sutra was the ultimate, the profundity, the every aspect of how to self-actualize our Buddha-ness. The Lotus Sutra itself, the ceremony in the sky, the ceremony or the come on, Sylvain. The sermon of Shakyamuni about how to attain enlightenment just as he did explores every aspect of what it is to be a bodhisattva coursing in the world of samsara with a Buddha mind. And so Nichiren, as he's teaching these different people, some are close disciples who've renounced their samsaric life, if you will. Not, I shouldn't say it that way. Their households, right? And they've dedicated their lives to the practice of Lotus Sutra Buddhism via Nichiren's instruction. And then there are others who are powerful regents and samurai and farmers, and Nichiren is touching all kinds of people, right? And for each of those people, some are leaders, some who learn from Nichiren and spread that teaching, right, more effectively, because they have people, they have fiefs, they have families, they have extended lands, they have people hierarchically under them in the social ladder, and they promote this teaching to them, so they become, right, monks among the people, teachers, but they're lay people. Some are traveling monks, some are close inner circle disciples. For all of them, with their lives, as Nichiren got to know them, and the proposals they would bring to Nichiren and say, look, this is what I do, this is how I practice, this, help me attain and practice correctly. And for those people, Nichiren would inscribe a central teaching of the Lotus Sutra to give them some focal, some mind-centering object, a mandala, to reflect their Buddha nature, how for them to practice to attain this Buddha nature. And as he developed this mandala, it didn't start out as the mandala you see, well, if you can see it behind me. The lights kind of make it difficult to see, but you've seen it. Before it got, that's an evolution of his lifetime to encapsulate a mandala that's universal for everyone, not just for Frank, not just for, Betty's family and herself and her group, her household. He made it in a way more specific to enlightenment, the goal of Siddhartha Gautama, that anyone could do this, and more specific early on to the people he was distributing this Namo Myo Renge Kyo. And so you'll see that there are 125 to this day extant mandala, and they look different. They're more or less evolved. We'll look at the early ones, and you'll see they all have Namo Myo Renge Kyo in their central feature. That's what he was promoting. That's what he was teaching. Look at this one. And these are black and white images, right? And I hope that this workshop doesn't mind that I'm doing this. But, here's an early one, and you can see the diagram for it. It's pretty simple, right? So it wasn't until later in his lifetime. I mean, look at these. Some of these are very hard to discern, right? I'm sure in person it's much more amazing to look at. But, as you go, he goes through his life in his later periods, the mandala gets much more, right? It gets much more complex. It contains more and more of the teachings captured in the Lotus Sutra. And so in case you didn't know, ultimately, what we end up with, like the one that we use, is a later in life compilation of Nichiren working to create a mandala that's universal, that's for everyone, not just certain, right? He accomplished his ultimate mandala, capturing Shakyamuni's teachings in the Lotus Sutra, with the center being the treasure tower, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, but all of these various personages, characters from the expedient means of Shakyamuni's teachings. So many of you, many of you, aren't even aware that the mandalas started out as almost like a napkin drawing, yeah? I mean, not literally a napkin. It wouldn't have lasted. This was in the 13th century. So, we're almost 800 years later looking at documents that still exist, documenting his evolution of the mandala. But they're all signed by Nichiren. They're all his. Well, some disciples also got into the act in his last years, but The point is, his mandala became fully developed as a universal Jambudvipa, right, for the whole world, the universe, to use as the complete object of mirror of our Gohanzan, our Buddha nature. Now, some sects use earlier mandalas that aren't as fully developed, but they are at least the hand of Nichiren. They are direct connection to Nichiren. That's our mentor, that's our teacher. Not Nijiki, blah, 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 not Bob, not Alice. We don't practice their mandala, their Buddhism. We practice Nichiren's enlightenment of Shakyamuni's Buddhism. Now, that's very important to me because that leapfrogs over all of that drama of these other sects and groups, everyone claiming we're the one, we don't need that one. What? What are you practicing? Nichiren's doctrine of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra or Bob? And I'm sorry, Bob, I keep picking on Bob, but it's just it's a name. Please don't take that personally if your name is Bob or Robert or whatever, okay? I know I hit on Bob a lot, but it's not a specific person, right? Anyway, so I hope you get my point, right? So I arrived at the most developed of late-stage Nichiren's inscribed mandalas. And I actually found some histories, and it may be questioned, but I found some documentation in academic circles stating that this particular, and this is a digital image of one of those extant real mandalas, that it was the version that he was buried with. Now, if it's good enough for Nichiren, that's my mentor. That's who I'm using as my ultimate instructor on how to practice Shakyamuni's Buddhism of the Lotus Sutra accurately. He's my teacher, not some new boy who claims he's the one. Great, go practice. That's wonderful. But don't claim to usurp the authority of Bodhisattva Nichiren. What an egotistic claim. Right off the bat, if it's egotistic, it ain't Buddhism. So, in our Sangha, in my sharing of my insights, I am saying to you, don't you want a direct link to what it is we're practicing? Would you rather not have to deal with the politic? And I mean, this has been the destroyer of Buddhism since Nichiren talks about it all the time. This greed and avarice and ego of position, and if I can interpret the teachings this way, then I'll be the favorite and I'll get the lands and the money. And this is the history of man, and it's certainly identified in Buddhist history. I don't want to practice that crap. I want my practice to be clear. I want to be listening to Shakyamuni Buddha when I chant Namo Myo Renge Kyo to my reflector of enlightenment. Thank you, Nichiren, for making this possible, for making this easy. So I don't want to practice anybody else. Oh, here's my little signature, Fred of Jojo G. I'm the Nichiren you're following now. No, you're not. Get the hell out of the way. You may be helpful as a teacher, but don't usurp the real lineage of bodhisattvas like Nichiren, Nagarjuna, Tendai, Miaolo, Dengyo, Vasubandhu, on and on. Because all of them were not standing in the way. They were all extolling Shakyamuni Buddhism. They never stood up and say, now you're going to practice Vasubandhu Buddhism. What? No. When you learn the English language, do you claim it as your own? No, you speak English. You don't speak Frank. You may have your own dialects and rhetoric, but they're all you imposed on English, the alphabet, right? I mean, who would question? It's a silly, stupid thing to ask. And yet it happens in all sorts of things, certainly in Buddhism. So yeah, I'm very adamant. If you want to practice correctly, practice Nichiren's tool of Shakyamuni's enlightenment and teachings of the Lotus Sutra. No, nobody else's. Follow the law, not the person. Over and over and over and over. We read this in Nichiren, we read this in Shakyamuni's writings, we read it in the Virmalakirti we just finished. Again, Nichiren didn't invent that thinking, he's just repeating it clearly. And that's what we want to do. We want to repeat it, which is what Shakyamuni told us to do. Repeat what I have done. Invoke your Buddha-ness. It's really, I mean, humans can complexify anything, yeah? It's a very direct thing that we're doing. It's not political. It's not this is better than that. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in this sort of thing, I mean, this video will probably tell you everything that you need to know, and you can grasp other little nuances within the search in this video. But yeah, this group is the Nichiren Mandala Study Workshop. Shameless, and you know, nobody's, do I have to go through the nobody's paying me to do this? This is all my own opinion. Hopefully you know that. But if you're new here, you may not, so I said it. This is just a group that I found that, you know, over the years, I've seen information show up on the internet that was very eye-opening and enlightening, and I've downloaded a lot of it, and I've made some of it available to you via threefoldlotus.com and the study core materials there. And only to find out a decade later that they're gone, right? People die. People don't pay the internet domain name anymore, so it gets picked up and puts in some other, and only partially. It's very hard to find that information, and I lament that, because that information was very formative in my own understanding of practice. So I'm trying to pick up the torch wherever I can to make it available to you guys, right? And so when I find a group that's organized around doing this research, you know, even if they, you know, make the rhetorical mistake of calling it Nichiren's Buddhism, I know that that's just a label. That's not as academic as their research is on the extant mandalas and what year they were inscribed and where they either still exist or where it's a private collection, or knowing who it was made for or maybe not. That's very scholarly investigation. Their scholarship is focused on the mandala, not so much the practice of Nichiren's doctrine of Shakyamuni's Buddhism. You would think, how could they escape that? But, you know, this rhetoric's been around a long time. People spread it that way. So, on the one hand, if I want to be picky, that's a mistake. But on the other hand, because they provide so much value and insight into the whole evolution of Nichiren's teachings and doctrines, I can overlook it. But as I'm sharing my scholarship and my experience, I don't want to be cloudy about any of that. I want to be very direct and as accurate as I can with you guys, because that's what Bodhisattva exhorts us to do. Be clear. Be singular. Don't be wishy-washy. And if you are wishy-washy, don't tolerate that about yourself. Figure it out. And it's all there. It's been there for 3,000 years. It's not like you have to worry about it going away. It's in the sutras. The internet is the internet, right? Things will crop up, beautiful insight. When I pass away, I don't know how long these podcasts and videos will stay on it. Not that that has to be sacred in any way, but my little experience, my lifetime of enlightenment and experience with these teachings, whatever value they may have to inspire others like you to find for yourself your enlightenment, your path. Well, that influence, whatever's good about it, may disappear, may just be gone. Should I lament that? I can't. What a waste of time. All I can do is do the best I can right now. And I just want to impress upon you, the mandala isn't just some party favor that one does better than another. It is a singular creation of Nichiren's, although Shakyamuni spoke about it, defined it in the appearance of the treasure tower chapter of the Lotus Sutra. He constructed it in words in his sermon. Everything was transmitted verbally as a mental image to understand the concept of personal enlightenment. All Nichiren did was inscribe it into a reflector, a samsaric form, because we're so attached in this latter age of human development that it's a wonderful device for us to unclutter our minds of distractions and choose one, if you will, distraction to focus upon, which directs us right back into our mind and opens that gate, that door, window, whatever you want to call it, called Gohonzon. That's where the objective of practice is, our mind, and clearing it, Buddha-ing it. And so if there's a reflector developed after a lifetime of study that encapsulates the Lotus Sutra teaching of Shakyamuni for self-enlightenment, then that's the one that I want. Nobody else's version. What is a version? What version of the alphabet do you use? The alphabet's the alphabet. What version of numbers do you use? Yeah, I know I'm going to get some of you mathematicians. I go, well, is it a base 10 or a base 2 or blah, blah, blah? You know what I'm saying. If we're going to communicate and understand anything as human beings, we have to pick standards. You can deviate from that standard, but you know that your deviation is not the standard. It's a deviation from the standard. So who would argue that the standard mandala is the one developed by decades of practice of this monk, this bodhisattva monk, Nichiren, that he created for all humanity? That's the standard I'm practicing to. Isn't that the standard you want to practice to? Or do you want to go to AutoZone or Pep Boys and pick up their version, not a copy, not an actual copy like this digital copy, but their endeavor to read, write, and say, go ahead. Read, write, recite, promote. Do that with the teachings, not with the mandala. The mandala is the mandala. It's Nichiren's mandala. Don't make it Pep Boy's mandala. I'm not practicing Pep Boy Buddhism. We practice Nichiren's enlightenment, Nichiren's doctrine of Shakyamuni's Buddhism, the Lotus Sutra. All right, I've hammered and hammered on that point. The big takeaways on this video for me would be that you understand why this mandala is the one that I'm using and promoting, the most direct link to our mentor Nichiren, and I'm leapfrogging past all of that political drama that comes after, whatever sect or group. I identified a couple, and maybe I should. But they're guilty. They're guilty of misleading themselves, not understanding what they're doing. And see, I don't feel bad about pointing that out. Nichiren's my mentor, and he showed me when somebody, and Shakyamuni said this, when somebody's deviating from what you know to be correct, you must call them out. Otherwise, you're complicit. I don't want to be complicit. I don't want to mislead you. Does that mean they're bad people? Just means that they're ignorant. They don't understand the evil they're promoting, in the words of Buddhism. They're cutting people off from their enlightenment by misleading them. So yeah, I identify them. I want them to practice correctly. I want them to get the maximum benefit of their practice. Otherwise, why are you doing it? It's a powerful, emotional, it hurts my heart to think that something this important, this valuable, this insanely simple and clear practice can become so clouded and muddied by politics and ego. But isn't that the story of Buddhism? Isn't that why Siddhartha first started looking for this answer? So I believe the issue of the mandala is central to that very commitment to our enlightenment. Yeah? It's heartwarming, on the other hand, to know that there are groups of people who are taking it upon themselves to seriously document this evolution. It helps me feel more confident, and hopefully you as well. And for all of those of you who have emailed me, can I use so-and-so's? Can I use this mandala, this version? What are you practicing? And I'm not telling you now, I'm not telling you, well, roll that up like a cigar and burn it in effigy. It's part of your history of practice. I still have my early NSA distributed mandala. I still keep it. It was part of my karmic development as I practiced as best I could the scholarship of Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra. I still have it. It's part of my history, but I know what it is. I don't honor it. I don't have it enshrined. I keep it in a safe little box, wrapped up, part of my history. But my modern practice, my more developed practice, has been to seek this direct connection with Buddha, number one, Buddha-ness, through the scholarship of our great mentor, Nichiren, and his insights. And that's why I've spent so much time creating hundreds of videos on all of his writings, albeit with some better and worse translations. I've done that with Shakyamuni as well. I have 5 or 6 different translations of the Lotus Sutra that in the Lotus Lectures playlist, I pulled from each one of them. And you could see the cultural bias in them, right? From H. Kern to Burton. They're all, but you can see the similarities too. It's the nature of study, isn't it? It's just like life. When you're 13, you think you finally get it. By the time you're 15, you finally get how stupid you were at 13. By the time you get in your late teens, you start thinking, wow, isn't the world far different than what I thought it would be? Do it again at age 25, at age 30, at age 40. At age 50, you're like, there's so much dissection of things to know that now it's impossible to feel like you know anything without having to deep dive and become an expert. Isn't that what I'm talking about today? You want to know what a mandala is? Well, you're going to have to go down this rabbit hole and then give yourself confidence that, now I know what a mandala is and why the Nichiren mandala is what it is and what it isn't. Do you need to do all that? Do you need to read all those books and research it all? I had to. Maybe you don't need to. Maybe you can, after this video or a few talks about it in this regard, I get that. I get that and I feel confident. Good. Because that's ultimately what this practice is about. Your self-confidence. Be confident that you can enlighten your own mind, that you can actually know. Everything else is window dressing, truly. All right, that's quite a bit of blah, blah, blah on this subject. But I felt I had to address it because every now and again, I need to remind myself, where's the core here? That's why I don't spend a whole lot of time talking about daily news, like the earthquake in Mexico and like the wars all over. I mention them from time to time, but I don't need to drone on and on and on about the preoccupations and clickbait of the world. That's not where happiness is. That's not where your full development of Buddha-ness is. That's the monkeys. That's the distractions. But sometimes we need to be made aware that some distractions are posing as reality just so that we can remind ourselves, oh yeah, let me get back to center. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. So I hope I've answered some questions or opened some doors or in some way provided you with some insights, background, at least to know why I've made the choices I've made as to how I practice Nichiren's doctrines of Shakyamuni's ultimate teaching of the Lotus Sutra, Buddhism. And if it helps your confidence and helps your practice strengthen, feeling more grounded, more depth of connection, then I've succeeded. And thank you for that, because without your mind teaching yourself and interpreting it with your own insights, what I'm sharing, then this Sangha isn't working. And that would be a travesty in my mind. So anyway, I'm so super proud of you guys, just that you're practicing and studying. That's your path to enlightenment. So I can't begrudge your opinions. They're all valid as long as you keep working on it. So stay strong, stay committed, Be mindful of your health and others. Be kind to yourself. And I hope to see you in the next one. If you have suggestions on any deep dives, like maybe this is one. It's part of a deep dive, yeah. Don't forget to use the search on the home landing page of this channel. Use threefoldlotus.com. Get yourself a Gohanzen map if you like. You can get it free on threefoldlotus.com, or you can order a book from lulu.com, right? I deeply appreciate all your support, like, subscribe, but also those patrons of you who've been able to financially support this effort. Stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Whatever the next one is. I'm undecided right now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye for now.